Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The Rev and the Rabbi on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Good morning. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
Reverend, you and I have been talking this past week about conflict in the world, and it seems like every week we're talking about conflict somewhere. And the latest one is coming out of Iran. And you see people who are giving their lives to change the entire atmosphere and to obtain freedom. You want to talk about a statement of courage. You're seeing it on the streets of Iran at the present time. And we are privileged to have with us Alireza Jafarzadeh, who's the Deputy Director of the U.S. Office of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, and the author of The Iran Threat, which was published in 2008. And Mr. Jafarzadeh is an Iranian policy expert, has been instrumental in efforts to prevent the Iranian regime from acquiring nuclear weapons, and he gained prominence in August of 2002 for revealing the nuclear site in Natanz. What an honor to have you with us, Alireza.
Always an honor, Rabbi Potasnik and Reverend Bernard. Really appreciate the opportunity.
So my first question to you is this. Where are all the demonstrations in America? I mean, I remember college campuses and so many streets were protesting what was going on in Gaza, and now you don't see that group or those groups coming forward and screaming and shouting, which I find astonishing because what's happening in Iran warrants the attention of the world. Any reaction to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I mean, our supporters get out and, demonstrate in support of freedom in Iran and against the Iranian regime. But this is something that we should get everybody involved, everybody on board, because no matter what nationality you are, what part of the world you're located, the Iranian regime is a threat, whether it's in the Middle East, whether it's, Venezuela, in Argentina. The Jewish communists are bombing in Argentina was entirely directed and conducted by the Iranian regime. Right. And so that's why a free Iran, a democratic Iran, a republic Iran, where the vote of people counts, that an Iran that would be non-belligerent and would adhere to freedom and democracy would have a huge impact everywhere. And that's why everyone should get involved. I fully agree with you.
Yeah. Rev?
Alireza, what is the connection between Iran and Venezuela?
Oh, I mean, Maduro was the biggest ally of the Supreme Leader Khamenei in the Western Hemisphere. And the connection was, multifaceted. First of all, the Quds Force, which is the terror unit of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, was fully operating in Venezuela. They had presence all over. They were actually recruiting people there. Then you had the issue of the oil. The two countries had very close relationship, primarily trying to circumvent sanctions. And the two of them who were sanctioned were working together. And then you had the issue of the narcotics, which the Ayatollahs are heavily involved in that. There's a lot of money into it. And then you have the issue of the missile program. A lot of the missiles that Venezuela had was given to them by Tehran. They also helped them develop their own factories to make missiles as well as drones. The most advanced drones of the Iran regime were at the service of Maduro. I think that's enough to see them as how they were allies, but it was bad news for the Ayatollahs when Maduro was gone.
Help me understand something. Under the Shah, Iranians lived, as you said to me before we went on the air, there was limited freedom. How do we go from limited freedom to the Ayatollahs where there's no freedom? I understand fighting for more freedom, but how do we get to this place?
Well, actually, the Shah had a secret police known as Savak, which was going after intellectuals. He built the notorious prison known as Evin Prison, which is the main prison for the political prisoners in Iran. He created new forms and methods of torture. He would just get rid of anyone who was expressing any voice of dissent. And then a little over 3 years before the fall of the Shah appeared on television, dissolved all of the political parties who were allegiant to him anyways, and declared there's only one party, that's my party. You are either a member of this party or you go to jail or get your passport and leave the country for good. He was so arrogant and reliant heavily on the United States support and, all of that, thinking that, the fact that you have the support of a foreign country, that's enough and you can repress your own people. People didn't like it. Iran is a very rich country in terms of culture, history. We will not accept that. And that's why the protest started. And the Shah saw the problem. He appeared on television just shortly before he fell, admitted to all of the problems that he had. He promised that I'm going to be correcting everything, but that was too late. Now, that genuine revolution, which was meant to be in favor of democracy, political pluralism, and end all of the cruelty of the Shah, was stolen by the mullahs who were left intact by the Shah. The Shah left the mosque intact, gave them money because they were praising the Shah. He also wanted them around because he could sell it to the Americans that, I have these Muslims who are anti-communist and I'm fighting communists. Any intellectual in Iran was labeled as communist. So that's why when the revolution took place, the mullahs managed to steal the revolution, but soon they installed even far worse, repression that you had seen under the monarchy of the Shah. And that's why a nationwide resistance was formed against the theocracy. People saying, we don't want theocracy. We don't want the mullahs to tell us, how to think, what to wear, even in personal lives. And that's why this movement has been fighting. 98% of the Iranian population are Muslims. And that's what the mullahs have taken advantage of that, saying, okay, we represent God, we represent the religion. And the intellectuals rejected that. The main opposition to the Ayatollahs, they are democratic, secular Muslims known as the MEK. They waged a big resistance against the mullahs. Many of their members and supporters got killed. Just in the summer of 1988, Khomeini, who was the supreme leader at the time before Khamenei, he issued a religious decree, a fatwa, saying anyone who is in any way associated with the MEK must be killed, because they introduced a different version of interpretation of Islam, which the mullahs were exactly the opposite to it. So as many as 30,000 political prisoners were murdered in summer of 88. A vast majority of them were the MEK. The regime felt, okay, this is over. We killed them all. Well, it didn't happen like that. And now you see in the streets of Iran, all over the country, in the past over 2 weeks, we have seen protests in 220 cities in all 31 provinces. Who are the people who are fighting, who are in the streets? The lead people involved in this are actually those who are either grandchildren, sons and daughters, siblings, brothers and sisters of those the regime thought that they destroyed and they killed many years ago. That's why this resistance against the regime is so deep-rooted. It goes back to decades ago. So no matter what they do, how many people they kill, they cannot kill an idea that is standing up for freedom and for democracy. That's the one thing they can destroy.
Rev, can we ask you to hold on?
We got to take a break. Yeah, we got to go to a break. But when we come back, this did not begin as a political protest. And I want to talk about how it developed into or took on political dimensions. So stay tuned for more of the Reverend Rabbi right here on Red Apple Radio Networks. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard. Rabbi, do you want to just introduce our guests?
Absolutely.
Just joining us?
Just to pronounce his name is going to take me about 10 minutes. But Alireza Jafarzadeh, who's a deputy director of the U.S. Office of the National Council of Resistance of Iran.
And Iranian policy expert, right? With that said, these protests began in December sometime, and they didn't start around politics. It started around economic collapse, right? Iran's currency has plunged in value. Inflation has surged. Real wages and living conditions have deteriorated sharply over time. Then you factor in UN sanctions, war expenditures, economic mismanagement, reduction in purchasing power. So Iranians have been pushed into desperation. So now you have to say, okay, it's the government. That's the problem, that we are experiencing this deteriorating quality of life, especially among the young people. Is this a valid assessment, and what is your response?
Absolutely, Rabbi. Iran is not a poor country. We have the second largest oil and gas reserves in the world, in addition to all of the other resources. But 80% of the population live below the poverty line. And when you get that the business sector, the traditional business, the bazaar, who used to be the bedrock of support for the Ayatollahs, when they stand up and protest, there's a big problem. And it started with the deteriorating currency value. Just to give your listeners an idea, in the first few years after the revolution, you would have to pay 80 riyals to get $1. And now you have to pay 1.5 million riyals to get $1.
Wow.
80 in compared to 1.5 million. It's just hard to even think about it. And that's the level of hardship that the people are going through. Add to it that, the whole infrastructure of the country is destroyed by the mullahs, water, electricity, food, you name it. And, the money and resources goes to these proxy groups that people are vehemently opposed to it. It goes to the nuclear weapons program of the Iranian regime, which we are so proud to undermine it. We expose all the key nuclear sites from Natanz to Fordo to everything else, because it's not a patriotic and nationalistic program. It's a program that is meant to keep the regime in power. The nuclear program has cost the Iranian nation over $2 trillion. Just think about that number in the case of Iran, $2 trillion. That's more than all the oil revenue that Iran made since the Ayatollahs came to power. That's the kind of toll that is on the Iranian people. That's why the people are just totally fed up. So when that, protests and strikes started by the bazaar, it expanded to other sectors of the society. You got the students involved, and then you had those who have been in the organized resistance, organized opposition, which always they wanted to overthrow the mullahs. They got involved, acting as engine, trying to expand the protests to different cities, to different parts of the country, maintaining the focus of the slogans on death to Khamenei, death to the dictator, and the people were chanting down with the oppressor, be the Shah or the supreme leader, making it very clear to the world that the Iranian people, they want freedom. And they want democracy. And that's why the momentum, gained. And now the regime, the information we have, they massacred and killed as definitely over 3,000 people. I've seen higher numbers. So that's a number we were able to confirm. And then they arrested at least 50,000 people in the first 2.5 weeks of the protests. that has continued ever since. Though the regime managed to reduce the volume or the expansion of it, but it has gotten deeper. The hit and run attacks between the people and the young people and the regime has continued.
So, given the strength of the protests, do you foresee a possibility that the Iranian regime can fall without American military intervention, or do you need the Americans intervening?
Well, one thing I know, Rabbi, that the outside world so far has not been helpful. When you have the Western policy being a policy of appeasement, closing their eyes to the terrorism of the Iran regime, closing their eyes to their weapons of mass destruction, to the killings of Iran, giving the regime legitimacy, that's not helpful for the people of Iran and the organized resistance against the regime. So that needs to end, and thank God we've seen a major shift, especially in the past few months, not just on the part of the United States, but also in Europe. I was so encouraged to see Europe taking the lead in calling for the snapback of UN sanctions on the Iran regime. Now, when it comes to the people of Iran, Iran is a very big country, some 92 million population, much larger than, all the countries in the region. So you need to have a change coming from within. And that's why our movement has always said, our leader is a woman, Mrs. Mariam Rajavi, and she introduced a 10-point platform for the future of Iran, saying that the only criteria for legitimacy is ballot box, and she calls for separation of religion and state, freedom of religion, equality for men and women, free market economy, and non-nuclear republic Iran. And she repeatedly emphasizes that there is really no need for foreign boots on the ground or appropriation of money. All the United States, Europe, and other countries need to do is to recognize the right of the people of Iran to deal with this regime, to confront the revolutionary guards, to end the rule of the clerics. Just don't give the regime the money and resources. Hold them accountable for their crimes against humanity. The rest must be done by the people of Iran. So we're not trying to, trap other countries to come and do the fighting for us. We're just saying respect the right of people to overthrow them and don't help the regime.
It's crazy because, the last report I heard, I don't know what you did, Rabbi, but 2,500 people killed. We don't know because the government has shut down the internet, right? So there's no internal communication. So we're getting word from NGOs, we're getting word from organizations that are on the ground or interacting with people on the ground. So we don't know exactly what the true numbers are. Is there any way that's being changed?
Actually, you're correct, especially when the regime cuts, the internet and is always lying about anything, all these years. What we have done, because we have a very powerful, strong network all over the country, the Iranian resistance, and we try to gather information. We have always been very cautious in the information we put out until we're, absolutely sure that they're accurate. We would never release them. And 2 days ago, we came up with the number after compiling reports from hospitals, morgues, family members, our own network in Iran, in over 220 cities in all 31 provinces. Our estimate was that over 3,000 have been killed by the regime for sure. And, some 50,000 arrested. I've seen, larger numbers, but definitely that's the case. The regime hasn't denied any of these things. They're just trying to justify it, saying, they're terrorists who are, who appeared in the streets and they wanted to confront the regime. The regime calls anybody who opposes them as terrorists. They call any nation around the world, who call for accountability and adherence to international norms. They call them, world arrogance, that kind of thing. So That's the number we have now.
Alireza, we're going to ask you to stay with us because you have so much information to convey that we need to hear more from you. And when we come back, one of the things I want to understand is, and Rev, help me with this one, how people who claim to be religious are so brutal in the treatment of other people.
This is a theocratic government.
Yeah. But
absolutely,
with a higher belief in God and the hatred for human beings, it's hard to reconcile.
Yeah.
All right, stay tuned.
Sure.
Stay with us. Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
You know, Reverend, what I want to say, and Alireza, I know will confirm this, thank you to all of the people who have stood with the freedom fighters, with those who yearn for freedom in Iran. I've gone to many protests. I've met Alireza. So many leaders of all the different faith communities came together and say, we will not be silent. We're going to shout so that the people in Iran hear us and know that we stand with them. Alireza, that's got to be very reassuring because, in history, there are times that people simply sat silently and did nothing. But here we have letters being written to Congress, resolutions being passed, but above all, people standing up, speaking as loudly and clearly as possible so that those in Iran know you're not alone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Rabbi, I'm trying to remember if you had a question before we went to the break.
We're talking about religion and its treatment of people. And it is just beyond comprehension that one can be, or one can claim to be, religious and ruthless at the same time. Alireza, you want to address that?
Absolutely. That's a very, very important question because in reality, what you see in Iran since the Ayatollahs came to power in 1979 and Khomeini took over power, even though he built this perception that, he's a holy man and he's just going to go back to Qum where the theological schools are and he will continue with the religious studies and all of that. He actually showed his true nature through what he was actually about. That, he was the most ruthless, anti-human person you could possibly find on the face of the earth. He cloaked, fascism under the name of the religion. This has nothing to do with religion. It's all about fascism, a mentality and ideology of dominance and killing everyone who slightly disagrees with you. If it were about religion, 98% of the Iranian population are Muslims. Why is he killing the Iranian people? Why is he killing, the main targets of the Iranian regime, even though they're the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism, but the main targets are the Iranian people themselves. And so it's really not about religion. It's about misusing religion. He brought this whole idea of, Islamic fundamentalism, doing everything under the name of religion, going after anyone they don't like under the name of religion, issuing fatwa to kill them, issuing, religious orders to eliminate them, to cut off their hands, their feet, and stoning them to death, assassinating, all of them, justified under the name of religion. So we have to make that very clear distinction.
Yeah, Rabbi, I think that's an important point because we have to be careful when we equate religion as a positive moral force with those who would use religion, for the abuse of power. You want to respond to that, and then I'll present my question?
I think that throughout history, people have blamed religion for brutality. They said, look what, you've done using the banner of religion. And we've always said, no, don't blame religion, blame those who abuse religion to achieve their, whatever their goals are. So I'm glad that moral distinction was made.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
important.
the interfaith. We have a history of different religions working together, especially nowadays. And suddenly, out of nowhere, these mullahs came. Since the time that the mullahs came to power, they changed everything, the entire region, as far as, Africa, all of the places. And that's why we say this is the most brutal element that has emerged in our history, in modern history. And that's why, when we're talking about regime change in Iran, this is very different than just, replacing one system with the other. We are just taking out the roots of terrorism, the roots of, that hatred, the ideology of hate and destruction. That needs to be destroyed. And the good thing is that those who are in the forefront of fighting the Ayatollahs are Muslims themselves. The MEK, they are Muslims, as a vast majority of the Iranian people, but they're saying this is not our religion. Don't put it on our name. We're going to fight you. We're going to take back our religion, and we're not going to give you any legitimacy. And interestingly, the leader of the movement is a woman, because, under the ideology of Islamic extremists, women are nothing. Yeah, exactly. They're so misogynist. And then on the other side, you can see that women are actually taking the lead. The mullahs say that women can't even think. They can't even judge. There is not a single female judge in the whole country of 92 million in Iran. Not a single. Why? Because based on the regime's law, if you are a woman, you cannot become a judge. And then on the other side, yes, we have women in the leadership fighting them.
Yeah, Alireza, people don't realize we tend to be spoiled here in America because we've had stable government, for a couple hundred years. But regime change is a very serious thing, especially when you're talking about authoritarian systems, because authoritarian systems, political dissent is criminalized, media is controlled, civil society is suppressed. It is not easy to respond to that. There's a potential gain of freedom of speech and assembly and political participation and all that. And, women who are brought into positions within society, there's all these great things that can come out of it. But that's not easy. What are the challenges of a regime change in Iran?
Well, regime change in Iran is not a luxury. It's not that, it's a good thing to have regime change. It's an absolute necessity that the people of Iran have come to realize that, many, many years ago. When Khomeini came to power in 1979, the main opposition, the MEK, they never collaborated with him. They never joined him in the government. They said, okay, let's just, respect the rights of people. Let us do our own rallies, our own events, our own meetings. And, we say what we say and people will listen and they will choose. But the mullahs said, no, you don't even have the right. So it took about 2 years for the mullahs to totally consolidate power and pushing into, underground and leaving the population with only two choices. You either totally submit to the regime and endorse them everything in all aspects, or you fight them. And, the MEK, the main opposition, they chose to fight, and it wasn't clear what was going to happen to them. They could have been entirely wiped out and totally destroyed. But they said, we rather do that rather than, endorsing a fascist mentality that is not just affecting our people, but the whole region under the name of religion. So they chose to fight, and that's happening. So what I'm saying is that regime change by the people of Iran, even though it's costly, but it's the only way, because look at the cost of the rule of the mullahs. How many terror operations they have done around the world. If, how many countries have been affected by them, how many people have been killed, not just in Iran, but everywhere else. That's why we say it's a must, but we're not asking others to do the fighting. That's why we're relying on our own population. Yeah. We have a clear platform and all of that.
Alireza,
and unfortunately, I was just going to say, unfortunately, in these situations, the most vulnerable in the society usually suffer the most. It just turns out that way. It's unfortunate. We're coming to the end of the show, Rabbi.
No, we have a segment.
I hope we have some time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alireza, I saw a demonstration in Iran. I don't think it was a doctored film. There was the flag of America and the flag of Israel in the demonstration. Am I wrong?
Well, it's possible. I don't know which which video you're referring to, but I think anything is possible in the country of Iran. The one thing is clear that the Iranian people are not the enemy of anybody. They're not enemy of any countries. The regime took advantage of the full support of the U.S. for the repressive Shah and built this anti-Americanism, and that's how they took over the American embassy and, built all these anti-America slogans and all of that. But that's not the real people of Iran. The people of Iran want to be free. They want democracy and freedom, and they want to live in coexistence with all of their neighbors in the region. They feel the peace is reachable even in the region. The single most destructive element that has not allowed the process of peace in the Middle East has been the Iranian regime. That needs to end, and there is a reason why the regime in every Friday prayer that you see in Iran, every Friday all these mullahs get in various cities and they have their speeches and then they have their own orchestrated slogans. There are 3 slogans: death to America, death to Israel, and death to the MEK, which is the main opposition that is fighting the Ayatollahs. So they feel that, they need to build and rally their own forces, their own, radical elements around fighting United States and Israel, and then also their biggest enemy internally, which is the MEK. But none of that is working. The people are not picking up that, those slogans. And to the contrary, the people are rallying around the MEK, that they have created these resistance units that are acting as engine for change in Iran. So whatever the regime has done has not worked.
Right. Rev, this has been eye-opening.
Yeah. And it's tough because you have to have credible leadership to lead a regime change. You have to have a unifying vision, institutional continuity, because institutions collapse in situations like this. How do you rebuild? Money tends to flee countries that are in situations like this. It's not easy, but it's great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a transformative moment. I mean, if Iran falls, just think of what the world will look like post-Iran, post-Mullah Iran.
And, there is a process for that, absolutely, that vision. But, after the fall of the Ayatollahs, Mrs. Rajiv, our leader, has said that there's going to be a transitional government that would for no longer than 6 months. Within that 6 months period, will set up for free and fair elections that would lead to the formation of a national and constituent assembly, whose job is to draft the new constitution, to shape the new form of government. So you will have a representative government based on the vote of the people. It's that kind of Iran that is so inspiring, not just for us, but I think anyone around the world.
Alireza Jafarzadeh, Deputy Director of the U.S. Office of the National Council of Resistance of Iran. Thank you for all that you've done, can continue to do. We stand with you.
I thank you, Rabbi Potasnik and Reverend Bernard. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's always a pleasure to be on your show.
Thank you.
It was enlightening. Thank you. And of course, we'll look to have you back in the future. But in the meantime, we'll be back with more of the Rev and the Rabbi right here on Red Apple Radio Networks.
Thanks for listening to The Rev and the Rabbi. You can hear The Rev and the Rabbi Sunday mornings at 7. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This episode is brought to you by Greenlight. Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.